All right, so today we're diving into something pretty heavy, a period in Indian history that I think still sparks debate, the emergency in 1975.
Yeah, you always hear about it, and we've got a unique perspective on it today. A movie review, actually.
Yeah, from MovieKaTicket.com, and they're looking at this 2025 film, Emergency.
It's interesting to see how a film tackles a historical event like this, especially one that's still so relevant.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening in, we want to make sure you get a sense of what this film was trying to do, how critics and audiences saw it, without having to go and track down every single review out there.
Exactly. We're going to be focusing on this particular review from MovieKaTicket.com, and they had a kind of mixed reaction to the film, which I think makes this even more interesting. Not a simple thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah, it wasn't a clear-cut case, so that's why we chose this review, because it's a bit more nuanced.
Definitely, and this deep dive is really for you, the listener, so you can form your own opinions about the film and maybe even about this period of history.
Right, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, this review covers a lot: the plot of the film, the actors, the direction, the writing, the visuals, the music, even how it performed at the box office, and the overall audience reaction.
We're going to hit those key areas and try to pull out the most important points so you have a solid understanding of what worked, what didn't, and why.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the story itself, the plot of the film.
Right, setting the stage.
So according to the review, the movie really centers on the events leading up to the emergency declared by Indira Gandhi back in 1975. It follows her rise to power and mentions that initial wave of public support she enjoyed, especially after the 1971 war with Pakistan.
Right, a period often remembered with a lot of national pride.
And the reviewer points out that the film doesn't shy away from the allegations of election malpractice against Gandhi, which of course played a huge role in the events that unfolded.
Yeah, those allegations were a major catalyst.
Definitely. And the review really focuses on the portrayal of her son, Sanjay Gandhi.
Yes. His role during that time is always a point of discussion.
The reviewer describes him as this aggressive enforcer of some pretty controversial policies, particularly the forced sterilization programs and the slum demolitions. It sounds like the film highlights his influence on his mother during this period.
And that dynamic, the influence Sanjay had on Indira, is something historians still debate.
It's interesting that the film seems to delve into that.
It definitely adds another layer to the story.
The film also apparently touches on Gandhi's eventual fall from grace, her arrest after the emergency ended, and then her comeback story where she regains public trust, particularly after a famine. It's a pretty dramatic political arc.
It's quite a journey from that initial popularity to her downfall and then this resurgence.
But here's the catch. The reviewer says that the film struggles to find a balance between historical accuracy and keeping things interesting for the audience, making it a good movie.
Yes, that classic dilemma for historical films.
Exactly. How do you stay true to the facts while still making a compelling story?
It's a tightrope walk for sure. And it sounds like the reviewer felt Emergency might have stumbled a bit in that regard.
Now let's move on to the actors who brought these figures to life. The review had some high praise for Kangana Ranaut's performance, as Indira Gandhi calling it compelling.
Always interesting to see how actors embody these larger-than-life historical figures.
They said she captured Gandhi's mannerisms, her way of speaking, and her political sharpness really well.
Sounds like she really embodied the role.
They even mentioned that she portrays some of Gandhi's internal struggles, which adds a human element to the character.
That could be a powerful way to make a historical figure more relatable.
But the reviewer felt that other key players from that period were kind of pushed to the side.
Oh, really? Like who?
People like Atal Bihari Vajpayee, played by Shreyas Talpade, and Jai Prakash Narayan, played by Anupam Kher, they didn't get as much screen time or development.
That's interesting because they were such important figures during that time.
Right, and that decision to focus more on Indira Gandhi could potentially shape how viewers perceive the whole story.
Yeah, it could simplify a very complex situation.
On the other hand, the reviewer described Vishak Nair's portrayal of Sanjay Gandhi as menacing and ruthless.
Which aligns with some historical interpretations of his role.
Exactly. And the review also mentioned that Rajiv Gandhi, Maneka Gandhi, and some international leaders make these brief, almost cameo appearances.
So not central to the main narrative.
Now let's talk about the director Kangana Ranaut herself. The review acknowledges her ambition in both acting and directing the film.
Taking on both roles is quite a feat.
But they point out an issue with the narrative coherence, suggesting that the film jumps between political drama and this more personal story of redemption, almost like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be.
So a bit uneven in its focus.
Yeah, and that lack of focus could leave viewers feeling a bit lost, like they're watching two different films mashed together.
I could see how that would be jarring.
Interestingly, the reviewer did say that some specific scenes like the declaration of the emergency and Gandhi's arrest were gripping.
So it wasn't all bad.
But then they also felt that other parts were overly dramatized or even historically inaccurate.
Finding that balance between drama and accuracy is so tricky.
And this brings us to a major point. The reviewer felt the screenplay was biased. They argue that it portrays Indira Gandhi as more of a misunderstood figure, blaming her advisors for the excesses of the emergency rather than holding her fully accountable.
So the question of who's really responsible for what happened.
Exactly, a really crucial point. And it highlights how historical narratives can be shaped and presented.
It's important to be aware of those potential biases.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the reviewer had good things to say about the cinematography by Tetsuya Nagata. They said he did a commendable job capturing the look and feel of 1970s India.
The visual aspects of a film can really transport you to another time.
They specifically mentioned the use of sepia tones, detailed set designs, and accurate costumes as being effective in recreating that era.
Those details can really enhance the viewing experience.
And the music also gets a positive mention. G.V. Prakash Kumar and Arco composed the score, and the reviewer said it added to the film's emotional impact.
Music can be so powerful in storytelling.
But there was a small criticism. The background score sometimes overpowers the dialogue, which can be annoying if you're trying to follow what's being said.
Yeah, especially in a film with such a complex political storyline.
Now, for the big question, how did Emergency do at the box office? Despite what might have been high hopes, the film received mixed to negative reviews and didn't perform well commercially. It grossed around 21.75 crore worldwide and is considered a box office flop.
So it didn't quite capture the public's imagination.
And the audience reaction itself was quite diverse. Some people praised Kangana Ranaut's performance, while others criticized the historical inaccuracies and what they saw as a glorification of Indira Gandhi.
A mixed bag of opinions, which is understandable given the sensitive nature of the topic.
And political analysts and historians also chimed in. Many pointed out the film's selective portrayal of events, which sparked debates about its credibility.
It's always going to be under scrutiny when you're dealing with such a hysterically and politically charged subject.
So to sum it all up, the reviewer's final verdict is that Emergency had the potential to be a great political thriller, but ultimately fell short due to what they saw as over-the-top drama selective storytelling and an inconsistent pace.
Sounds like they felt the execution didn't match the ambition.
They did acknowledge Kangana Ranaut's strong performance, but overall they felt the film didn't fully do justice to the historical events it depicted.
It's a shame when a film with so much potential doesn't quite hit the mark.
And for those who are curious, the review mentions that Emergency is now available for streaming on Netflix.
So there you have it. The key takeaways from this deep dive into the Emergency review are that while the film attempted to depict this huge moment in Indian history, it faced criticism for its historical accuracy, potential bias in storytelling, and an uneven execution, despite a strong performance from Kangana Ranaut.
Looking at this review really gives you a sense of just how difficult it is to adapt such a complex historical bit into a film that's both engaging and accurate.
It brings up all these questions about how we interpret and represent the past, and the responsibility filmmakers have when tackling sensitive subjects.
Exactly, and I think this leads to a thought-provoking question for everyone listening. What do you think makes a successful and responsible portrayal of a historical event on film?
How do you balance the drama and the facts and represent different perspectives without distorting the truth?
It's something to think about, especially as we continue to engage with history through the lens of cinema.
Absolutely food for thought indeed.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Emergency, and we'll catch you next time.
Until then.